How can we provide a space that is accommodating to you and your needs while also maintaining our focus on the job that we are all here to do?
Welcome back to Take It Online, where we dive deep into workplace dynamics, exploring how culture shapes the happiness and productivity of employees. I'm your host, Brittain Wells, partner and organizational culture advisor of an AI product company in the organizational development space called the Happy Employees. We support executives, CEOs, and HR professionals to establish or reestablish positive, productive, high-performing, and happy work environments. On our podcast, some of the topics will be culture-focused, some will be AI-focused, and some will be focused on how the two intersect. We hope you finish each episode having laughed a little, learned at least a little, and excited to tune into the next episode. If you enjoy our episode, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends and colleagues.
We ready for scenario number 3?
Scenario 3.
All right.
Here we go.
Okay. We're talking about supporting an employee through a personal tragedy. A well-respected project manager recently lost their spouse in a sudden accident. They returned to work sooner than expected, but are visibly struggling, missing deadlines, forgetting important details, and withdrawing from team discussions. Some colleagues are unsure how to interact with them, while others feel burdened by the additional workload but are afraid to speak up. What do you do?
Ooh. Again, this is not a matter of if, this is a matter of when. So what a great conversation to have. Thank you for that. This needs to be handled with so much empathy and for the person, and also so much awareness for the group. So, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. If one of those parts isn't working, then the entire group suffers, right? So we need to be able to protect and preserve the safety and well-being of the group while also clearly being very attentive to protecting the safety and well-being of the individual. Having a trauma-informed background, I can tell you that almost every high achiever we know is going to be the back to work early person. They're going to go and they're going to use work as a coping mechanism, which I'm sure on some level they feel like it's the right thing for them to do. I need the distraction. I need to just keep routine. All of that is true. They're also in such a state of shell shock that they're, think about what happens when you go into shock. You physiologically change. Your faculties are so disoriented, you can't actually do your job. So while it feels good on some level to go and overperform by hyper achieving, you're not actually doing anyone, yourself included, any favors. So it's going to be a very tender and very clear conversation with the person that is, I might get criticism for this, but I'm going to say it anyway, really outlining that it is too soon to come back. And, we as a group and as an organization are here to support you on your own path of coping with this loss, but coming back full tilt and jumping back into full-time work isn't working. And so as a result, what can we do together that gives you the support that you need and gives you the, the paid leave that you require in order to manage this in a different way? Being very sensitive that it's a personal issue that clearly affects somebody at work and we don't want to overstep, I would say we're also going to offer some resources, whether through it's from our own in-house person, like who's a therapist or is part of the mental first aid ERG, or are we going to, highlight, we have X number of dollars allocated towards counseling, therapy through our benefits program, really highlighting all the resources that are available while being very clear and proactive about establishing a plan. What does time off look like? What does reentry look like? And also, if I'm that manager, if I'm that leader, if I'm not equipped to do this, I'm bumping it up to the person who's higher than me to talk about what does a return to work look and feel like. How can we provide a space that is accommodating to you and your needs while also maintaining our focus on the job that we are all here to do? And what does that look like literally in terms of support once you're back, transitioning you from whatever time off that looks like, or a part-time, or are we working from home? Is there more flexibility? What are the concessions we're making that allow you to get what you need to get while also working on your own capacity for healing?
I like that. I like your phrasing of not only what does it look like, but what does it feel like, right? Like that's so critical, because it's especially in these, I experienced a very significant traumatic and sudden loss several years ago, and I went back to work early. My boss did not tell me I went back to work early. There was a moment where I was like, ooh, I need to go home. Like, this is not right. I'm not in a good headspace to handle all the things that are being thrown at me right now. And I think that what does it feel like is such a critical question that I know that I've never heard, and that I think is something that probably goes unsaid too often, especially in this type of scenario, because it is all about what it feels like in those moments.
Mm-hmm.
When you're that person that has experienced some type of trauma like that, all you have going on are all these feelings. You are just inundated with feelings, and to have that be your gauge versus a timeline or a deadline or a project or whatever the case may be, I think is such a not only an empathetic way, like a very kind and generous way to offer the rationale for coming back, but also a smart way, because if person's, especially if they're in a critical role, it could be very disastrous if they're not in that right headspace, if their feelings are not in the place where they can manage a high stress environment, or even a low stress environment for that matter.
Yes. And to share a personal, like, real life example of this, one, I've been in this scenario. I've been this employee who it was like, I lost my sister, and I was like, I'll see you in 2 days. And they're like, no, you won't. You will not be back here in 2 days, because that is completely unreasonable. But furthermore, I had a client who lost her husband, and she had 2 young kids, and she was at a pharma company. So talk about high performing. And so, she loses her husband. She goes right back. She goes right back to it. And that was her coping mechanism. And she did what she needed to do. And now she was responsible for 2 little guys all on her own. Right. But what happened is that she was so reasonably traumatized by the event that her performance, she couldn't deliver. So now she's under delivering. And instead of somebody reaching out and being like, hey, we've noticed that things are not right. This is out of character for you. What can we do to support you? Was it too soon? They put her in a PIP. So now she's on a performance improvement plan. And this poor thing is just, she's shocked to her core, and she's using all of her old mechanisms of like, I will work. Work makes me feel better. And it's like somebody else with clarity, who isn't in that physiological state of shock and withdrawal, has to step in and say, with, again, confidence, clarity, communication, and grace, to say, I'm going to make this decision for you. This isn't working. What can we do together that creates a better scenario for both of us? Right?
Yeah. I think this is like a very key training that every manager has to go through, right? Irrespective of where you are, what you're doing, in which company. I think one of the mandatory trainings that we usually have in the companies, right? I think one of the mandatory training is, how do you handle an employee going through with some personal tragedy, whether it's a divorce, whether it's like loss in the family, or a bankruptcy, or health, their own personal health, whatever that personal loss that employee is going through, how is it impacting the work? And as a manager, how are you going to handle that? I think like you're saying, Leisse, where this manager don't have an idea, we see a lot of people like that. They don't know how to react. Like,
I know.
Sorry, I get scared. Should I talk? Is it okay to talk? Is it not okay to talk? What level can I have that conversation? I'll just keep my door open. Is that enough?
Yeah.
Is that enough? Like, the person going through that may not want to talk, but would appreciate if someone comes and talk and give some kind of solution, right? Understanding that is the key, most emotional intelligence concept of what the manager should have. And I think that should be like a proper training around it. because again, managing the performance versus the weekdays versus
Mhm.
off, and every other team members would come and ask, right? Hey, how is she doing? How is he doing? Can we go talk? Can we throw some party? Can we take out for lunch? As a
Mhm.
manager, you should be able to handle all of it,
Mhm.
handle about it, and go through it. I think, and for the responses that you gave, Lissy, and the responses that AI gave, it's kind of aligned in a theoretical level. Again, find the HR policies, get through, give
Mhm.
all sources, show empathy, have, like, the concepts around have that profound empathy towards the
Mhm.
situation, create a safe space, meet the person privately, create a flexible support plan. All these
Mhm.
things AI has brought in, but all the points which AI set for this particular response, it's absolutely good compared to the other two scenarios.
Mhm.
I would
Mhm.
give that. But what AI is missing in the scenarios is what level of communication that you want to have with the manager, which
Mhm.
you highlighted, right? What level you need to say, and if you're a manager, at what level you need to step up and say, I am making this decision
Mhm.
for you because I
Yes.
clearly know that you're not in capability to do it. It's nothing to degrade you, or it's nothing to disappoint you, it's for your well-being. So I think that's the only part that AI didn't actually highlight.
Mhm.
All the other parts, all the other points are good,
Well,
but
and I would say, sorry, Akila, in the AI response, they actually frame it as offer a flexible
Mm.
return to work, something along those lines. And I know you were concerned that you might catch flack for saying that you're going to make a decision, but I think to the scenario, the personal or the scenario that you provided from an experience that you had with someone who got put on a PIP, right? Like that's inevitably what's going to happen if we just let
Yes.
this play out. If
Yeah.
I'm consistently underperforming, I'm not meeting expectations, I'm not meeting deadlines, I'm not fully present at work,
Yes.
then I'm going to end up on a PIP. And so someone should have stopped this from the beginning. Someone should have said
Yes.
with the clarity of mind, this is not right. This person is
Mhm.
not ready yet. And to what good is it for me just to let them stay and
Yes.
suffer and just really try to muck through this instead of really having some time to be able to figure out what is next in their life?
yeah, I may be wrong in making this statement right now, but I feel like as a human, we do feel sorry for the situation,
Mhm.
right? We do feel empathetic to be in that situation, no matter
Mhm.
how narcissist or aggressive or what my original personality is. When something is going on with someone else within our, we do feel that empathy, but having that emotional intelligence, processing through that empathy, and
Mhm.
still thinking about good about that person, making the decision, I think that is the different level of emotional intelligence
Mhm.
that's needed in this kind of scenarios. Do I make sense? Do you agree, Liz, with what I'm making?
Yes.
Just making a statement at a level like what AI, in all the AI response, right?
Mhm.
The entire paragraph that AI gave, AI highlighted, right? Show empathy, show empathy.
Mhm.
I feel like empathy is going to be there, at least in this kind of scenarios. Other scenarios, maybe empathy is something that humans should learn. But for personal loss, I think people do show empathy. They feel sorry. But beyond empathy, you need a different level of emotional
Yes.
intelligence for processing this sorrowness, right? How do you, create the barriers that it doesn't hit your own trauma, that
Yes.
that it doesn't go back into your own loss of the family? Where do you, how can you cut that off, how can you build that barriers and
Yeah.
still be professional? I think this is a completely different level of human intelligence needed, with like logical,
Yes.
and all kind of things. Yeah, I just feel like this is, yeah.
I totally agree with you. And what I can't stop thinking about in so many of the conversations that I have, this one included, is that true leadership is like parenting, or parenting is like genuine leadership. You know, candy tastes great. Ice cream is the best. But as a parent, I have to step in and say, like, you have had enough ice cream. Like, I'm cutting you off. Now I'm going to introduce you to a plate of chicken. Like, now you're going to have this, right? I'm providing a very clear framework of, listen, as the leader of this family, I can see through with all of my experience and what frankly my job is, you are now making bad decisions. And I have a responsibility to this family to keep us afloat. And part of that is making sure you're eating a balanced diet. If we take that over to, or with, which friends you're hanging out with, or how much you're using social media, like parenting is endless leadership. But in the workplace, I get it's very sensitive and it's very delicate because we want to support our employees, we want to support our people, we want to make sure as a society we have such a weird relationship to death, and we all like live in denial that it'll ever happen. And then when it happens, we're like, well, I guess we better not talk about it. Like that should be helpful for everyone. And so we have this like taboo nature around it. And unpopular opinion, we are still responsible for a top line and a bottom line. And sorry, capitalism, like you win on this one. So I, as a leader, have to make sure I am leading and I am stepping in and having the hard conversations, making the difficult decisions that allows you to feel seen and supported as a member of this workplace community, while also ensuring that my responsibility to the company is actually being met. And if I have somebody on my team who cannot deliver, I have a responsibility not only to that person, but to the rest of the people on my team and to the organization as a whole to ensure that those responsibilities are being carried out. Otherwise, I'm not doing my job as a leader and as a member of that community myself.
I just want to highlight one thing. Listening, getting your opinion on that would be really great, because you were just comparing leadership to parenting. There's a new article that's coming around that says like, hey, you be a manager, not a therapist. While you keep talking to your employees, try to understand the well-being. Hey, what's going on? How is your today? What's going on in your family? There are people who compare this kind of having that human connection or human conversations with the employee turns to be as a therapist. And there's like so many articles that came out in recent days that says a manager is not a therapist. You want to dump your trauma, go talk to your therapist, not your manager. I am here as a manager. Just get your productivity. I just want to come, make sure you do your work and go, but not everything else. I want to like clearly discuss about this, because when we say manager, I think there is a component to make sure you're productive. And to become productive an employee, there are at least the basic, you don't want to talk to your employee about his or her dating life, the ongoing drama. Hey, I miss the train, I miss the bus. You know what? My landlord said all this drama. That's different. You don't want to dump all that to your manager. That's not professional. Having a loss in the family, having a complete change in the life, like there is a change in the life event, I think this is different, right? That's going to impact your mental well-being. That's going to impact the way you're going to process, react to employees, the way you communicate, the way you sit in a meeting. I don't think everything is rubbish, because end of the day, we're all going to die. If that's my attitude, if I have a personal loss, that's not good for me, not for the company. I think the level of engagement or involvement that's needed for a manager and how to handle it, that should become a mandatory training. What do you think about that?
Yeah, boundaries are a beautiful thing. And, those articles aren't wrong. That, like, first of all, again, I don't know where you guys stand on this, but as soon as I hear like, oh, it's great, it's a family business, I'm like, red flag. Family businesses are usually chaos. When people say we want this workplace to feel like your home, no, you don't. Your workplace is your workplace and your home is your home. And boundaries are really good for a reason, because they protect all of our mental energy. And they yes, we need to be who we are, and we need to be allowed to be human, but it doesn't mean we have to let it all go. So I like to talk about things, and sometimes we build a wall that's so high, it's like we've built a tower nobody else can crawl over, nobody can get to us. And then we think that in the absence of that, I just take the wall down and anybody can get to me. No. We were talking about building a gate. Like, there is a definitely clear delineation point. You still have to walk through the gate with permission to come through. And I think that is the very, very delicate nuance, particularly with Gen Z and possibly Gen Alpha employees coming into the workplace. the difference between Gen X and Gen Z in how they treat boundaries at work is radically different. So how do we get people on the same page to realize, no, I'm not your therapist, and no, I'm actually not your friend, and at the same time, I'm a very compassionate human. So yeah, I'm here to do a job, but I'm not an automatron. And that ultimately, as you know, we've learned today, like that's the key differentiator. If I want to just be a robot, hire somebody to be a robot who can just make decisions without any context or nuance. If you want a therapist, great. Then I guess we don't need a workplace anymore, because now we're not considered about productivity at all. We're only concerned about people's well-being. That doesn't make sense. We need this like perfect Venn diagram in the middle, in which we have very clear leadership that has really healthy, clear boundaries that allows you to be human while also holding you accountable to do the job that you're there to do.
I like that. I like that Venn diagram.
Love the Venn.
And I think that's where you find that like sweet spot in leadership, right? The person that can do that can empathize, have compassion, be authentic enough, and allow themselves some vulnerability and some discretion to potentially share some personal things without oversharing, right? Without providing too much information, so that those that report to you feel that there is a connection there, that there is trust there, that there is psychological safety there, but there isn't, to the point, we haven't pushed it over that cliff to where it just is like, okay, well, let's hire a bunch of licensed professional counselors and stop trying to have a profit margin, right? Like,
And how many times have you seen that dynamic go south? Because I know so many people, they've been hired, the manager is great, they get along, it's like they've known each other forever, and then there's a conflict. And all of a sudden, nobody knows what the org chart is, because we've been going to IKEA together on Saturday mornings. Like, who's in charge now that I have a human resources complaint against you, or I, as the manager, I think that you're under delivering. If we're buddies, we don't get to actually do our jobs. That's the same as parenting. You can't be friends with your kids. You have to be the parent who's there as an objective leader, who is very warm, trusting, vulnerable, and also provides very clear framework and structure as to what the expectation of behavior is.
Well, this was great. I have really enjoyed it. I hope that you feel triumphant, because I believe you are triumphant over Claude. As much as we love Claude, this is not a
Love Claude.
I'm just gonna put this out there. I think ChatGPT would have been worse.
Yes.
We certainly paired you with what we consider probably the more difficult opponent. So this is not a dig at Claude, but it's just
AI. It's AI versus human, not exactly what AI we are using, because we kind of compared multiple models, and definitely ChatGPT wouldn't have given better responses. Claude, I think, has empathy included in it, so it came to a point. It came to a certain level, giving the theory, but the entire episode is how AI versus human, how much information can be processed through AI, and how you could actually retrieve that information, right? So
and what are those limitations? Where does someone like Leisse come in? And it's important that we have this human that can support those nuances and have had a human experience, right? Like, understand we've all had loss, and so when somebody that works for us or with us loses someone, AI doesn't feel that, right? We all know how that feels, and so that allows us to extend that empathy that Akila was talking about, right? That everyone has, because we've all experienced loss. We've all experienced some sort of difficult situation, and so that human compassion and component is so critical.
Join me, Brittain Wells, and the rest of us at the Happy Employees as we embark on this exploration of Take It Online. Whether you're an HR professional, a business leader, or simply curious about what makes great workplaces tick, this podcast is for you. Thank you for tuning in to our latest episode. Until our next episode, remember, a positive culture is not just a goal, it's a journey. Taking it offline hides feedback and stifles progress. Keep it open. Take it online.